The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Maynard Bangs presiding. Got eyes for the Honorable Judge Bangs.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus the Karate Kid, a 1984 family film about a young boy who trains in martial arts under the guidance of his building's maintenance man in order to fend off the cruelties of local bullies. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Justin Andrews, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Well, thank you. I'm here to argue that the movie itself is flawed in that we don't really know who the real hero or the villain is. And my job today is to try and persuade you to see the real light in terms of who was the real villain, who was the real hero, and why this is such an issue. If I'm leaving the film cheering for the villain to beat up the hero, I think that we have a flaw in our hands. Now, am I going into the entire, is that the short synopsis?
I think,
whole thing.
No, save that. We love that. Now what you've done is you've teased it. Now I want to know more. But you're holding it back because we're going to go to Mr. Schlender, who is representing the defense.
Okay.
Please present your opening statement.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. So, as I was watching The Karate Kid, I couldn't help but think, what is so interesting about this movie is just how ubiquitous it is in our shared culture. Even the vanishingly few people that have never seen it know what we mean when we say wax on and wax off. Every child in every playground has tried a crane kick at least once. But ubiquity does not make something good. On the contrary, I'm more inclined to think mass appeal of movies or music or literature pushes those arts towards the bad column. But I am happy to report that The Karate Kid stands above this as an exception. Unlike the derivative slop being larded out by our corporate overlords today, The Karate Kid is redolent of great films before it and inspired greatness after it. Much like Daniel's training, we may be wondering, why are we watching this movie? But then Doctor Strange versus Captain Marvel is announced. Wham! Paint the house. Deflected. Blink 182 is doing a reunion tour. Bam! Paint the fence. Deflected. The final Game of Thrones book is finally being released. Shasha, wax on, wax off, deflected. In many important ways, The Karate Kid gives us a very enjoyable and accessible blueprint for beautiful, inspirational features. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. You don't like Blink-182?
I don't like the idea of them being on a reunion tour.
You wish they'd never broken up. Mr. Andrews, you may present your first exhibit.
All the small things. Yes, I would like to paint a different picture of this movie, and I would like to go through and just give you kind of a quick summary of what your typical viewer would walk away from the theater feeling. We're to watch a whiny, unathletic, angsty teenager who moves from the East Coast to LA with a single mom, who decides the best way to make a first impression is to make a move on another guy's girl and stick his nose into places where he shouldn't. He continues to pursue the girl despite the obvious physical warning from her scorned boyfriend. The tension escalates.
Ex-boyfriend.
Were they on a break? Question from the bench. Were they on a break?
I'm not too clear about where they stood. relationship-wise, but they were a thing of the past. Let's say that. The tension escalates as our protagonist, his nemesis, is part of an elite karate dojo down the street. Thankfully, he meets an undercover janitor ninja next door to teach him how to do house chores really well and try to gain respect from his peers and the girl he's trying to steal. From a truce with the karate guys to settle their differences honorably in an upcoming tournament, our hero breaks this promise, causes more chaos to ensue, and fights in the tournament only to win using an illegal head kick. Our beloved instigator.
Is that illegal?
It's illegal.
Oh.
Our beloved instigator gets the girl, wins the trophy, all while our so-called villain gets choked half to death by his instructor outside in the parking lot. And yes, we don't find this out till Karate Kid Part 2, but I did find it relevant to this argument. So mainstream media, Hollywood, and nerds all over the world would like you to believe that Daniel LaRusso is the beloved hero of this film, but I say nay. Johnny Lawrence, although flawed, is a misunderstood, dedicated, and disciplined young man who's had a lot of friends, charisma, and showed us all how to put ego aside and more on from Danny's destructive and move on from Danny's destructive introduction into his very way of life. This is the reason why Karate Kid is a terrible film.
All right, Mr. Schlender, are we cheering for the wrong person?
You know, there might be actually something to that. As we would know, years later, Cobra Kai would come out starring what's the actor's name? Zabaka. I mean, he's got a weird name.
The blonde guy.
Yeah,
Neither of you know this man's
name. I've only had to read it. This is the first time I've had to talk in 3 days. So obviously the Cobra Kai series plays with this idea that Justin is presenting, and it is interesting. The crane kick is an illegal kick, and this is something they actually mention in the show, but I don't feel like there's enough on there with this movie in a vacuum to look at it in such a way where you see Danny as the villain. I do think you see a bit of a redemptive arc in the erstwhile antagonist when he gives him the trophy and he says, like, you did it, good for you, so they meet that level of mutual respect, which is what Mr. Miyagi really wanted them to achieve. It wasn't necessarily about getting along or liking each other. It was kind of like a peace through strength, respect kind of machismo, which, is very refreshing and not nearly as toxic as people would want you to think.
All right.
Yeah, I would like to counter that on some level. Danny is emotionally unstable, and this is what we learn. Danny can't control anything. Danny's too focused on revenge to resolve his problems. And Danny is too busy feeling sorry for himself to see the gems that are right in front of him. And it takes a good beating for him to really emerge as somebody that's even likable at the end of the film.
I think that's an interesting point. And I think with Danny, you're right. He is not emotionally strong. He's not physically strong. He is the epitome of weakness in many respects at the beginning of the movie. And though while weak, he's not a coward, though, right? So he's not afraid of these people. He's not afraid of the challenges ahead of them. And that bravery that he has leads to him acquiring the strength and skills he needs to really stop being the boy we see, the Karate Kid, and become the Karate Man at the end of the movie.
You could say this was his karat mitzvah.
No, you could say that, Your Honor.
I did say that.
That doesn't look good on a
t-shirt. I'm sustaining it. So, karat mitzvah.
Oh, there's the gavel. I mean, it's official.
Justin, you can present your next exhibit.
Yes, I'd like to also point out Johnny is a very disciplined person. He worked his way to the top spot of his karate dojo, and it was really under poor guidance where every time Johnny went astray, you can see this overarching philosophy that's really the problem at hand that he follows. Johnny follows a code, and Johnny is honorable in that regard. Um, Even when he himself was told to hurt Danny's leg with an illegal elbow, um, he did this and apologized right afterwards, knowing it was the wrong thing to do, but under the guidance of a bad sensei. So I argue, let's see what Johnny would have become if he had a Mr. Miyagi and not uh, Kreese instead.
Mr. Schlender, would Daniel-san be a total jerk if he was in Kreese's dojo?
Oh, 100% he would. And I think that is one of the lessons of this movie, right? You have to choose your heroes, your teachers very carefully, because it is easy to be led astray. It is easy for raw talent to be used to negative means. Justin's absolutely right about Johnny's character. As they say at the beginning of the tournament, he's the two-time All-Valley champ going into this thing, right? So not only, and then, you know, you juxtapose this to Daniel's training, which is only a couple months, and you consisting mostly of chores, you begin to see this interesting dichotomy arise between what Miyagi-Do karate is about versus Cobra Kai karate. And the Miyagi-Do karate is more about the respect and the mindset. It's about not needing to fight, but being able to fight, whereas Cobra Kai is just pure smash mouth fighting and not having that kind of moral discipline, which is again the fault of Kreese. Not because, I mean, we talk about, you know, Daniel and Johnny, we do have to remember they are children in this movie too, you know. So when you have,
you just said he was a karate man.
Well, at the end he becomes kind of like a karate man. That's what you know, they are children through the whole movie though, and that is an important lesson in the movie. You know, is like, what do you teach the children? How do you teach them? You know, because some might say the children are our future.
Justin, would you like to continue with your line of questioning?
Yeah, I also question in terms of the timeline of learning a new skill. It's unclear exactly how many months. I'm sure you guys have probably Googled this and I didn't.
But Mr. Schlender knows. Mr. Schlender, how long is
Mr. Schlender, I defer to you.
I think it's like maybe 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah, wow. It's pretty close because he gets beat up at Halloween, and then it's like so pretty short after that. Yeah, it's like
you're
6
telling
months maybe.
Me
yeah, it's under a year for sure.
Beat a 2-time All-Valley champion at the end of this on basically a CrossFit level cert.
I mean, 4 months is different than 12 months. I wish we could get an accurate number.
Yeah.
No, but it's 100% under a year because because there's not like another Halloween in between, right? Like I'm trying to remember the date it shows on the board, but I know the lack of training was a point against me. So why would I intentionally bring it up?
It would have been nice to know something about it. But Justin, please continue. You don't think this is enough time?
I don't think this is enough time. I think it makes for a nice montage, but I don't feel like skill acquisition wise, the amount of hours and discipline of going through just your basic punch and stances, and not to mention all of the blocking, the footing, and just
are you
the
a martial
rules
artist
in general.
yourself?
I've done Muay Thai, and I have my kids actually do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they've also done Taekwondo. So
Mr. Schlender, do you have a martial arts background?
I do not.
What? I thought you took a class.
No, I usually stop fights just by standing up.
Miyagi did a class.
He did a class. He learned how to kick real high.
He does it with class.
That's right.
But okay, so we have a martial arts opinion here that it's not long enough.
Yeah, but
it is
okay.
not.
But here's the other thing too. There are kids and there are rules, and
Right.
it's about getting these lucky hits. I mean, the crane kick actually is legal, like we mentioned, and not to mention how much Danny gets beat up, and then thank God Mr. Miyagi knows like magic by rubbing his hands together to make him feel better.
Easy
Thank you
now.
for
Whose side are
bringing
you
that up.
on?
Yes.
Hey, I'm just saying it worked. It's the placebo effect is a very real thing.
Save that
it's
one,
very
Justin.
strong.
Yeah. Again, this is all great evidence on my behalf. So
Magic healing.
This all just in terms of for me is I guess not necessarily saying I'm a super awesome practitioner, but I know what it takes to build and develop a skill.
Mhm.
I think it does a disservice to the skill of in the martial art itself of karate to have somebody just paint fences, sand floors, and wax on, wax off cars to a championship belt. It's a little far fetched, if you're going to ask me.
In terms of fitness, would it increase his strength or physical form or anything like that?
It would. It definitely would increase his physical strength and stamina. But in terms of that, here's another thing I've learned personally from training sports specific athletes. If you try to mimic actual movements, you actually impede these movements in training. So it's actually a flawed approach if you're going to ask me about that. Leave the skill training to the skill training and don't train bad behaviors.
Mr. Schlender, has he been taught all the wrong things?
Well, okay, so I don't think he's necessarily been taught the wrong things. And also, I want to point out, we're talking about like it's ridiculous the amount of training and stuff he had. You know who else thought it was ridiculous the little amount of training he had and that he probably wasn't going to win? Mr. Miyagi. He tells him several times.
Yeah.
He does mention it in the movie. He's like, it's not about winning. And he's like, he asks him, he's like, can I win this? And then, for the championship when he's in the final round, he's like, yes. But we have to remember leading up to that, Mr. Miyagi was like, you're probably not going to win. Like he didn't know like if he was a black belt or not, like Mr. Miyagi didn't care about the tournament. So it wasn't about him learning how to punch and kick. Mr. Miyagi kept saying that, it's like, it's not about that.
Well, question from the bench, Mr. Schlender, is Mr. Miyagi endangering this minor by putting him in a fighting contest that he's not ready for?
Is he? Well, if the referees were doing their job and didn't allow all those illegal punches and blows, that's not Mr. Miyagi's fault. This is a points tournament. You're not supposed to go like full on, wham, bam, thank you, man here. You know what I mean? Like it's supposed to be.
The referees were unaware of the blood feud.
yeah, exactly. It's like they need to be more dialed in. I mean, how many dojos are in this valley that they wouldn't think there's at least one blood feud? Anyway,
one
that's
less every year.
It's very suspicious. But that's my point, though. It's like it's not an unfair thing to bring up, and frankly, the movie would have been probably stronger, if Daniel did lose. But we have to remember that the director of this movie, why I can't think of his name, it's Avildsen.
This was somewhat based on his
John G. Avildsen
autobiography, right?
Well, it was kind of based on his best movie, Rocky. You know what I mean? So like, this is like Rocky for kids. And it's a bummer at the end of Rocky. He loses, but that's a grown-up movie and it's with grown-up lessons. Yeah. This is for kids.
We can handle that.
Well, yeah, we can. Well, we can, but like, it's just like he was probably very cautious of the fact. He's like, look, this is like Rocky for kids, but I don't really want Daniel to lose. I want to go out on a high note. And it still lands and it still works. Like ultimately, would it have been more effective if he lost? I do think so. But a more effective movie does not make a bad movie.
Justin, is this just Rocky for kids?
Well, I mean, if Ali's Adrian, I guess there's something there. I do see it. And I personally would have enjoyed the film more if he lost.
But instead of
it
beating
would.
his meat in a freezer, he waxes off.
Ah,
You
no.
were waiting for that, weren't you?
I wasn't actually. Nope. This is
That was amazing.
Challenge.
what you thought I was going to bring up Rocky? Okay.
You were
Yes,
there
I'm
all along.
constantly prepared, and I know what everyone's going to say in advance. Did you not get a copy of
Yep.
the script, Justin?
I didn't.
But
You guys didn't fill me in.
please continue.
Yeah.
And most of the script just says Maynard ad libs. You know, it's like the
Yeah.
Georgia Burns of podcasting.
So yeah, I have evidence left, but my initial points stand. I find this film entertaining, but I find myself conflicted because I was literally cheering for Johnny to smash his face, and I wondered why. And I think it was just it's not believable enough for me, and I feel like Johnny had a good heart, but he was very much misunderstood and misrepresented in this film. And so also too, this might be a little bit of a bias because I played contact sports. So there's that.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because you used to be a bully.
And I was going to say that, but I didn't want to give you that.
Oh, is that your
Only
last exhibit? Do you want to
yes.
rest on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Schlender, you may present your first exhibit.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. So we've touched on a few things I want to talk about, but one of the things I kind of want to hammer home is this is kind of a message movie. And so what is that message? And I think it really goes to the philosophy of Mr. Miyagi, which is, again, it's nothing like earth-shattering or particularly new in The Karate Kid, but it does a very good job of repackaging it in a way that's clearly stood the test of time. So what we have with karate in martial arts, right? We usually look at the Eastern side of these things, like the meditative value, the honor, the codes. We've talked about The Last Samurai and stuff on the show before, and so what Mr. Miyagi does is he blends that Eastern romanticism with like American zeal. And in case you're wondering if I'm reading too much into it, I'm absolutely not, because they explicitly say how Mr. Miyagi served in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the most decorated regiment in the history of America during World War II, as a Japanese American. That's one of the reasons he refers to Okinawa as being his home country and not Japan, because he had to forsake his allegiance to Japan, become fully American to serve in this. So again, this East meets West, and they couldn't have hit us over the head with it anymore. And then how does that play out in the movie now that we have that scene established? Well, we have Mr. Miyagi saying it's not really about fighting. It's not really about the physicality of it. But what does Mr. Miyagi do? He practices his crane kicks too. He chops those beer bottles to scare off the hillbillies. And he's like, I've never done that before. So he
beats up miners.
well, yes, to save
he does
to save another miner though.
Oh, so wait a minute, that's okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I gotta go, guys.
6 miners to 1 miner. Yeah.
But that's true. And it's like Mr. Miyagi said, he said 1-on-1 fair fight, 6-1 not a fair fight, So that Miyagi mindset combined with like Western ambition and our ability to strength and express ourselves physically marries itself very well in the Karate Kid. So you do get a warrior poet kind of aesthetic here wrapped up in a neat 80s package. It's really cool.
Justin, how do you feel Mr. Miyagi is represented in this movie?
I think Mr. Miyagi is, I tend to agree with a lot of his closing statements there in terms of his role as a mentor to Daniel Russo, a lot of the Eastern philosophy that comes through. I enjoyed that quite a bit. I feel that this is a kind of a big part of martial arts in general, is they follow code and they follow this specific ritualistic type of discipline. And me as a human performance geek, I wanted to see just more of that, and I wanted to see more of Mr. Miyagi's techniques, sharpening Daniel over a longer period of time and into a believable form that would have created a fighter that was half decent and not just some scrawny kid that complained a lot.
From New Jersey.
Hey,
from
tune
New
in for
Jersey.
Karate Kid 2, right?
Hey, we're just
I'm good.
evaluating
I'm
this
good.
film, pal.
Okay, well, you opened the door by bringing up the parking lot scene earlier.
And Cobra Kai. And I'm going to have to sustain that.
Wow.
All right. Well, we've touched on a lot of the points that I wanted to in some of my rebuttals and further argumentation conversation. So I only have one last point that I want to bring up, Your Honor, before I rest. And that would be if this movie is a stone that was thrown into our cultural pond, this point's about the ripple effects. Numerous sequels have been made to this. There's been even a remake. There's been the TV show, and those are just the direct bloodline we see to this. And why is that? Because this is a fountainhead of inspiration where you can take the story in different directions, and you can, like Justin was saying, you can actually see Ralph Macchio develop, Daniel develop, Hilary Swank develop.
All right.
Yeah, I know. Everyone wants to see Hilary Swank develop.
Hey.
But anyway, and then, of course, then we have Cobra Kai, which handles some of the objections Justin has brought up quite nicely, I would say. And it does lend some of his complaints more relevance because they made a whole TV show to address them. I don't think that sinks the movie. I think it speaks to the movie's strength and complexity of character that you can make a whole TV show about these guys who could otherwise be dismissed as a bully. And I do think dismissing Johnny Lawrence as just a straight up bully, you are missing something there. And I think we addressed a lot of that already. So if you look at the Karate Kid, if that's high noon, then you got like the Mighty Ducks is Rio Bravo. And that's probably the best I can do to pander to Ryan Luis Rodriguez when we're talking about sports movies.
Was the last samurai for me? Or?
Yeah, and it kicked off an interest in martial arts, but in an accessible way for kids, right? So we're not talking like Enter the Dragon here. We're talking about like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Three Ninjas, Surf Ninjas. Three Ninjas Kick Back. And even though it hurts my argument, I'm going to throw it out there. Warriors of Virtue. Why not? You know? But that's the thing. A lot of that came, like Karate Kid's very early. That's like 84, you know, but it has a very modern feel because it really set that template. So I think if you look at the progeny from it, it had good genes,
Mr.
you know,
Schlender.
like ripping off the Karate Kid was good business and remains good business today.
Mr.
And I will
Schlender,
rest there. Yes.
Do you have any statistics or stats that speak to maybe martial arts growing in popularity after this film was released?
I don't have any stats, just the glut of accessible kids martial arts movies that came out in the years after that. I mean, so here's a good example. Chuck Norris, he did Sidekicks, right? Which is a toned down kids martial arts movie as opposed to his big high flying adventures that he was used to, you know. And again, going back to like Three Ninjas, kids protagonist doing
Texas
martial
Ranger,
arts.
right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, then he would do Texas Ranger but later on, you know, so all of those things happened after Karate Kid. So making martial arts more accessible, I think you can point to the Karate Kid. And again, it's the cultural impact. Again, I think we've all seen kids trying to do crane kicks, right? So it's not so much about there being like an explosion in dojos across the country, but when you look at the but when you look at the media that came after and how many were able to call back to the practicality of the martial arts in the Karate Kid, or how kids should feel during sports movies. I mean, this set the template. I mean, you could even throw in like the Big Green, Sandlot. Any movie that involves kids in sports owes a lot to the Karate Kid. And
Mr. Andrews, how come the chubby kid's always got to be the goalie?
Or the catcher, as the case may
be. They can't run well. Yeah. You got to put them somewhere we can use them. Yeah.
But any rebuttals to this larger cultural impact the film's had?
I like that argument, but at the same time, I could ask you if that's a good thing. It is the popularity of portraying bad form, and emotionally unstable individuals to represent a martial art that's holds so dearly to the real true enthusiasts. Is this something to just willy nilly throw out there to neighborhood kids to just try out on each other and see what happens, or do we need to do a better job of showing the actual discipline behind it and usefulness of it as a practice, to enrich your life more? I think that they could have done better, and that would be my argument in terms of the movie. It definitely created waves and an impact in a culture, but there, as you can see as well, Cobra Kai came afterwards as a result of the neglect of attention spent to Johnny, and the need for that, which 6 seasons later shows the weight of Johnny's involvement in this film. And really, it was a missed opportunity for the film. Started out good, had a good premise, just didn't highlight the right character for me.
6 seasons, and Clerks, the animated series, couldn't even get one. All sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Andrews, you may begin.
Okay, I just would like to reiterate as we close here that are we supposed to really look at this film as a great example of somebody who can learn and apply a really high level skilled martial art through household chores? If that's the case, I should have just gone down to Home Depot and hired somebody and brought them home and trained them through practicing and cleaning my house to take them to the UFC and win a championship belt. I think that formula is silly, and I think it should be looked at again with a different set of eyes. I think that Johnny carried this film and made it as popular as it is, and it became the anti-hero, the villain, but really he's the hero in this film.
All right, everyone knows landscapers kick the most ass. Mr. Schlender, please present your closing argument.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. The Karate Kid. Everyone knows who the Karate Kid is. Everyone knows wax on, wax off, as I said in my opening statement. When Cobra Kai was announced, it wasn't met with head scratching or like, oh my God, they're trying to do another reboot, another requel, or whatever they call them nowadays. You know, it's like more fodder for another Bootcon, right? A legacy sequel. See, the words keep coming, just like the punches and crane kicks. But what did people do? They latched onto it. They liked it. They were excited about it for some of the reasons Justin was saying, because Johnny is an interesting character. He is interesting in Karate Kid Part 1. He's interested in Karate Kid Part 2. He's interesting in Cobra Kai. Daniel LaRusso, he is a very interesting character. Yes, he does have emotional problems, but he grows through them. Look, I don't need to insult anyone's time by talking about how brilliant Mr. Miyagi is, and there's a reason. Pat was how do you pronounce his last name, Ryan? Pat Morita. Pat Morita. He was nominated for an Oscar, and damn it, he should have won. But that's okay. We have a perfect synthesis here of East meets West, and it works on a lot of levels, on that moral level, that messaging level, that legacy level, and of course, just being entertaining to watch. The final tournament is fun. You do have a sense of dread. You do wonder, is Danny going to win? So when you walk into that jury room and you measure who touched who more and who did more illegal kicks and holds and things like that. Just remember, I kept it all above the belt. Thank you.
This time.
Yeah.
Thank you
Go
both.
ahead.
Members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, and Mr. Young Bee Need Young Flower, not Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Right this way. Mr. Miyagi is just a modern day Tom Sawyer, if you ask me. Don't fall for it, Yunyuns. Painting fences ain't fun, and it doesn't teach you karate.
Well, guys, I'm interested in hearing what you guys are thinking. Ben, I already know how you feel because I read your Letterboxd review, but why don't you kick it off?
I'm your fourth
tell me how
favorite.
you're thinking.
And it's a
Letterboxd
kid, and it's a
reviewer.
kids movie too. So Ben's gonna go claws out at this.
At least it's not animated.
How
rated
dare
it as
children
a
exist?
Gentleman 6, and I stand by Gentleman 6. But I've been going through a lot of those sort of 90s films that like such high esteem 80s 90s films like Good Will Hunting. We did Forrest Gump here. A lot of these really don't hold up as well as you think they do. Not to say that they're bad, but they don't hold up as well as you think they do. I think Karate Kid is one of those. I do think Mr. Miyagi's good. I liked him. Everything else that was said in defense of this film, like the ripple effect, Three Ninjas suck. The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan suck. The remake, all of it. I don't want to see any of this. And as to his point about you wonder who will win at the end, it's almost a victim of its own success because I know exactly how he's going to win. I know that crane kick without having ever seen it. I know wax on, wax off without having ever seen it. So I don't know if I can really bring a fair representation to this movie because everything I come into feels done already. It feels stale. Nothing's fresh about it. And I can't put myself in that mindset where I'm, completely blank on it.
See, that's interesting because I didn't see this movie until I was 30 years old. Because I was born in the 80s, but I was not raised on 80s movies. I only saw one movie in theaters by the time the 90s came in. And I ran screaming from the theater about 3 minutes in. So I didn't technically actually see that movie.
It was Baby's Day Out.
No, actually, it was The Little Mermaid. I saw Baby's Day Out in the theaters, though. I did. I finished
Stayed
that
the whole
movie.
time?
Yeah. So I am not one who is overly nostalgic for 80s movies because that's just not my thing. See my verdict in the Lost Boys episode, which you think that Karate Kid's unbelievable, but vampires who live in Santa Cruz, that's totally reasonable. Sure, whatever.
Well, but you have to set your suspension of disbelief early, right?
But anyway, I find this movie extremely charming. I love Pat Morita's performance. I was so happy to learn that he was nominated for an Academy Award because he's so fucking good in this movie.
Yeah, me too.
Everything that is good about this movie stems from him in some way. And it makes me think, like, I can't wait until my nieces and nephews are like 10 or 11 years old so I can trick them into washing my car under the guise of learning supernatural martial arts lessons.
But do we get anything from him beyond like his there's a presence in like a good teacher versus bad teacher thing, but he doesn't have a completion to his journey. It almost feels like he needs one.
Well, that's
right?
what part two
the film
is.
just ends with them nodding, and that's the end.
Right, but that's part two. Like this is Daniel's story. Part two is Miyagi's story. And there's a reason why it's called part two and not two, but that's neither here nor there. Rob, I want to hear what you're thinking.
I'm a lot like Ben. I'd never seen this movie, mostly because I'd never heard there were any robots in it, and that was true.
You're thinking of Real Steel.
I would watch that. I did know about the wax on, wax off, so that kind of takes the shit out of like, is Miyagi fucking with him? Like, he's not. So that's unfortunate, but that's something that I'm sure the original audiences really enjoyed. Was that swerve? But I didn't know about the crane kick. But I did know he was going to win. So overall, I'd say I enjoyed it. Thinking about the arguments that we heard, I do agree that the montage of training is pretty unrealistic, but that kind of goes along with all these sports movies. People are getting too good too fast all the time, and that's the power of montage. And it is more about training Daniel's heart. Now, the big thing is that the villain here is really more likable. And I have to say that that has to be something that comes from Cobra Kai, because I don't see it on the screen as someone who only has seen this movie. Johnny's a jerk. I mean, the first thing we see him doing is like come running onto a beach shouting to a girl who, as far as I knew, was clearly his ex-girlfriend. And therefore he has no, I mean, he doesn't have claim to her, whether it even is his girlfriend. He could still, anyone can talk to her. But certainly he's got absolutely no right to be upset about anyone talking to her.
I haven't seen Cobra Kai either, and I always found Johnny to be a jerk.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand that they're victims of Crease. That the movie makes plain and clear.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
But hurt people who hurt other people are still not okay. I just don't like them. He's learned the wrong way to deal with it. So I still think he comes out nasty, but you get to see a little glimmer of maybe a good person at the end. But then I think Schlenzo really wraps this up. This is, if Justin or this TV show can extract that much about Johnny's character from this one movie, although I'm sure it pulls from the others, but at least from this one movie, then there's a lot of meat on the bone for that character. And so with that in mind, see, but there is no nostalgia there for me because I'm not nostalgic for this movie.
But you didn't watch Cobra Kai either. Other people did.
I guess that's true. But I'm saying I don't see that facet of the character. I saw it as more black and white. Good guy, bad guy, but I don't think you need it. But I think if it is there, then it only adds depth to the film. So for me,
it's not replacing what was missing; it's adding to the souffle.
Yeah. It brings a little extra salt to the broth.
Wordsmith.
He is. He knew we were going to say that though. It's all scripted. So I'm going to go not guilty. It's not my nostalgia. You know, it's like the type of, I came out after this. I had better things to watch, like Land Before Time.
Like Three Ninjas.
And definitely Three Ninjas. I watched Three Ninjas and Surf Ninjas a fuck ton more than I ever watched Karate Kid. It was funny.
I wasn't allowed to see Surf Ninjas, but I did see Three Ninjas plenty of times.
Hey, well, I'm still going not guilty.
Ben?
As far as the argumentation goes, I did like the Miyagi argument the most on the defense side, but the illegal head kick, the fact that the bad guys, like, why are they so bad? Why is the sensei so evil? It's also contrived. How he learns karate insanely quickly. It's just insane. I'm gonna go guilty based on argumentation.
The man has no heart, Brian.
Well, I have a heart and a soul, and it sings to me sometimes. So here we go. Karate Kid, not guilty. Let's go tell that very handsome judge.
I'm going to crane kick Ben on the way out.
Ow! Illegal! It does hurt.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of the People versus the Karate Kid, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie.
The verdict is so rendered. I hereby declare that the filmmakers can crane kick Ben in the head to their heart content. Court is adjourned.
What did I do? Misa doing nothing. Oh, maybe it's that. Maybe
it was that. It was Jar Jar. You can't. You retroactively deserve every crane kick head you get now.
I do. Everybody wasn't kung fu fighting. This is Al Capella, the singing interviewer. Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, you're the best around. What did you think?
Yeah, never gonna get you down.
Oh man, you know what? It was a fun case. We got to talk about some of the more interesting things about Karate Kid, and I always like cases where we get to talk about meaning, cultural impact, and stuff like that. Because I could just sit here and say, "Oh, the acting's good," or "I like the soundtrack," and stuff. But I'm glad that Justin and I got to get into the meat of the matter. We got to the heart of the matter, and I think we came out to the right conclusion. And I think everything we said was valid, and that's why Cobra Kai is such a big success. I really think Karate Kid is one of those touchstone movies, a real fountainhead of inspiration. So thank you to everyone, and I'll see you later.
Thank you very much. And here comes Justin Andrews. You gotta fight for your right to comment.
Cobra Kai. Hey.
What did you think of the verdict?
Oh, that's my time to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. Unfortunately, I totally obviously I'm a fan of the movie. If I'm that strongly opinionated about Johnny, he definitely left an impact. Honestly, I grew up with this movie again, and I tend to pick, Lost Boys last time, this movie. It's really just because I was that kid that tried karate and told all my friends all of a sudden I knew karate just because I watched the film. And it was a lot of my childhood was overcoming bullies. And, but at the same time, like the friends that I ended up meeting were pretty much like the bullies at school. And I found out later, that they had bad childhoods, they had this, they had that. And so, in my old age, started to get a little more compassionate towards, that type of person. Like you said, hurt people. And this is just kind of a repetitive thing. So I try to have a little more empathy now. And so looking back at it with different eyes, I actually like Johnny, and I like, how they portray him in the Cobra Kai series, and it makes me like him more looking back at the old film. So, but I still love the old film, even if I'm trying to sit here and argue against it.
And I want to thank you for giving me the best comment of my life. Now let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis.
I just want to point out that
Wow.
correspondents are not eligible for realsies, so that will not be considered for best song.
Boo!
Yes, but Al Capella will probably be able to present something, much to everyone's chagrin.
Oh, no. Oh, that was a fun case, though. I really liked that one. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
My kids were split on the movie. My son thought it was boring. My daughter liked it, so.
Yeah,
Well, your son's right. It is a little boring.
Yeah, it's a little cringe to show it to kids today. That's for sure. Like they see all the cheesiness that we grew up with, and I think that they're facing a lot more real problems. So I think that's this is sort of this is sort of hokey for them.
Well, I mean, I think bullying is still a very real concern and topic. I mean, I still have a group of bullies I have to deal with every week.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
3 of them.
Yeah. Me too. I have 2. So yeah.
We're also terrible to it. So Justin, last time you were here, you gave us the world exclusive on when Maps Old Time Strength was coming out. What world exclusive are you going to give us today?
Better be something good.
You guys are all TMZ over here. I'll launch tell us. Yeah. So you already saw the last program that we launched. So we're actually this weekend we're going to be traveling down. We do this every time before we create a program. We go a weekend out to brainstorm and kind of get away from family, get away from every interruption that we have at work. And so we kind of lock ourselves down. And every time I've sort of pulled in somebody from the production to kind of help speed the process up. But we're going to be creating another program this weekend. And since nobody's going to hear this right away, it's basically going to be a Maps 15 style program, but with performance elements in it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm actually doing Maps 15 right now, and I have a pump all the time because of it. It's awesome.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, it's crazy. That was actually one of the strangest epiphanies. It was like we just started doing that and training that style on our own. And I was actually a little concerned that I was going to lose a little bit of strength, lose a little bit of size. But the consistency of it and just like how my body recovered, and it was really enlightening to see even further of like how much less you can do and how much further it can go. So that that whole style, I think a lot of people have actually run it or realizing that and how convenient that is. Because it like builds your momentum. too, because it's just the consistency factor. You're doing it like every day. You don't really get sore. You get better at whatever you're lifting. And so, frequency, it's just one of those things that it makes you learn and acquire skills easier because you're practicing them all the time. And so I want to do that kind of same formula for performance and for athletes or just people in general that want to avoid pain and they want to be able to move in different planes and address a lot of holes in their training, but do it in that style because it was so effective. So
so it's going to be like mobility, rotational stuff, but within the 15-minute model. So
You
like
got
just
it.
the two big lifts, dude. That's going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
Well,
I'm
let
gonna
people know
dust off.
the name of the show and why should they
Sure.
listen to it? What can they get from it?
Yeah. Why am I here? Thankfully one of you guys knows. So so I'm one of the hosts over at Mind Pump, and it's a fitness and health podcast, and we're kind of like the guys that are willing to tell you kind of the bare bones, like this is what works, this is what doesn't work. People are selling you on all these concepts constantly. Everybody's confused. We just try to really filter all that for everybody, make it more simple, and then try to entertain you a bit along the way, so you come back. And it's like it's a reflection. We were all personal trainers, so it's like basically showing up to hang out with your personal trainer buddies, and then we'll chop it up with you, and then you will apply what you learned in the gym or at your house, and you'll get fit in no time. So that's sort of my elevator pitch.
All right, pop quiz,
No
hot
time, you
shot.
say.
Pop quiz.
Banana or not?
Bananarama.
Banana a day, a couple times a day, a couple times a week. Banana,
Okay.
You like it or no?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, have you ever done one of those glucose monitors?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
The doctors keep
so-
telling me I should do it every day, but fuck those guys.
Yeah, what do they know? How much school do they really go to? Yeah, so no, like why I mentioned that is because it's really surprising. The individual variances are so different and so across the board. And this is either genetics or this is because of certain habits and people eating certain foods when they're inflamed, and they kind of build this sort of leaky gut, which then gets their immune system to overreact. And so they have like a different reaction towards foods that they eat all the time that they think are healthy for them. And so, it's very enlightening in terms of if your blood sugar spiking, when you're eating something like an avocado, which has happened to people before, or which foods actually you don't have any intolerances towards, which ones you do, which ones are benefiting you the most, where you're deficient in your diet, like all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm concerned with. So if it works for you, if you're using it as like fuel and like you need that sort of glucose pump before activity, I have no problem with like a banana.
What about, it's a great source for potassium.
Sure. Yeah, you can get potassium. You can supplement potassium. You get potassium from beans. You get potassium from a lot of other, vegetables and.
Try to walk down the street eating a can of beans.
Well, you got me there. I don't know if I would do that.
So get it in an easy little slurp pack.
All right, hey Justin, I know you love conspiracy theories, so I actually have a Mind Pump conspiracy theory, and I think you guys are sleeping on aesthetic advance because Adam wants to get back into stage shape so he can model for it. Is that true?
Ooh, you're trying to like forecast like Adam going back on stage and like the whole he needs his own training montage if we're gonna pull that off. Yeah.
Just to do aesthetic advance though, because you did performance advance and Sal did anabolic advance. It just makes sense.
No, I agree, but to a degree, like so we kind of we created MAPS PED, which obviously what did we end up like calling the acronym? It was like, play on words we were trying to do, but it's the most extreme bodybuilder style, like double double day type training for bodybuilders, super high volume. And we literally put that out there almost as like an FU, like, okay, you psychopaths out there, we do have a program for psychopaths, and here it is.
That's awesome.
So that was like, and people, and this is human psychology, right? They're going to buy the most extreme. And so we got a lot of sales for that, but it's like nobody's really gone through. I think there's only been a handful of people that have made it through the program. But that was aesthetic kind of base, like somebody that's on gear, as they say, is anabolically enhanced. That's the type of program, because they can handle all that insane volume, intensity, and all the above. But your average person would just get murdered. So, so that, I guess that was like kind of aesthetic advanced, if you think about it. But I don't know. We could play around with that, and then I like that idea. I would like to see Adam. Let's throw him out to the wolves again. And,
there you go.
Maybe
on stage and super narcissistic again. Let's do it.
Yes, bring the worst back out of him. Now, we always ask for
yes.
recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see. So, Justin, what is a movie you think people should see?
I don't know if you got. This is a newer movie, and
We get
I was watching. Yeah, okay, so you guys are privy. So it's on Apple, I believe. I don't know who produced it, but it's called The Creator. Yeah. So honestly, I've watched it twice, and there's not a lot of films that actually like get me to feel real emotion, like real. It definitely had a powerful theme and vibe throughout the whole film, and I just noticed those things where I'm actually like emotionally affected by the story. And they really like did a good job of making these robots, making them appear to have humanity in them, and good intentions and all that kind of stuff. So it was an interesting portrayal of AI and robots and all that, where you actually were like, okay, like I really do feel for these robots, so
It's
it
one of
was
the most
great.
visually breathtaking movies of this century so far.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Totally.
We're gonna use that as your quote.
God,
Justin.
Ryan's dialed in tonight.
And and it's Gareth Edwards too, right?
Yeah.
So Gareth Edwards
he's got
really,
an eye. Yeah.
He's pretty good at what he wants.
Definitely gotta check that one out. That sounds awesome.
I saw it in theaters.
I saw it in theaters with Izzy.
See it with D-Rock? I might have. Schlenzo, what have you got?
Out Izzy.
All right. Well, it's hard to be a parent. Wait. It's hard to be a parent and not know about Bluey.
Oh,
this Australian phenomenon has taken the world by storm, and we have been saying bushwee so much it is now the done thing. Thankfully, we have a letterboxable, therefore recommendable offering in the Bluey canon, and that is 2024's The Sign. Mm-hmm. Are the Gilas moving? Really? Tune in and find out. Like all of Bluey, The Sign has plenty of depth, Easter eggs, and charm to appeal to wide audiences. Bluey does so much, and it does it so right. It is a shining example of beauty in a world awash in vulgar and crude images that pass for art in our sick and dying society. So naturally, it's streaming on Disney+. Oof. Despite that, it is worth watching at any age.
Is it worth Ryan's
time? I have a good friend who has a Bluey podcast. I still have not watched the show yet, but it's called Back to Bluey, and hopefully he'll be on this show soon. But you should reach out, Dylan. You could be on that show.
I would love. Actually, another shout out to our friend Dwight Hurst. He did a whole episode about The Sign, and I sent him an angry message saying, "How dare you not include me? I know everything about Bluey." Because you watch it with the kids all the time, and the kids love it. It's always the first pick.
That's why. Yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah, no, of course. It's like we're gonna skip that one. That one's lame. It's like, but yeah, it's
yeah. It's like so basically extended episodes.
It's a very long episode. The more you know about Bluey going into it, though, the more you will enjoy it. I will say that much. So
is Unicorse in it?
He's like in the background. I think he's one of the Easter eggs. Like, you
Come on, more unicorns.
No.
My recommendation this week is the latest nonsensical crap fest from M. Night Shyamalan. It's
fantastic.
Wait. I'm afraid there's been some mistake. I'm sorry. My recommendation this week is actually the first and most likely last nonsensical crap fest from Ishana Night Shyamalan. Wait, her middle name is Night too? It's 2024's The Watchers. Ironically, the one thing this movie doesn't have. Ooh! A young American woman finds herself stranded in the woods of Western Ireland with 3 strangers, held prisoner by mysterious entities that come to observe them every night. Her directorial debut, Ishana wasted little time proving that she has her father's innate ability to mix beautiful composition with dumb as fuck storytelling. And as her father served as a producer for this film, I'm sure he was standing right behind his daughter the entire production, shouting more than just encouragement. But seriously, this looks and feels just like any M. Night movie, for better or worse, mostly worse. Most Shyamalan movies tend to be an extended retread of the diner scene in The Birds. Something is happening, although no one knows quite what. So here's various characters to share their perspectives on what they think it means and how that contrasts each individual to another. Same deal here. Get ready for 2 hours of people talking before a twist that's kind of cool if you don't think about it for more than 4 seconds. And for fans of M. Night's particular brand of lovely dumb fuckery, you'll feel right at home, assured that his legacy is in the equally misguided hands of generations to come. Ryan, what have you got?
I love that.
My recommendation is yet another documentary, 2024's RoboDoc, The Creation of RoboCop. I am a huge fan of movies, duh, but I'm even more fond of things about movies, which is why I produce an audio commentary podcast. At 4.5 hours long, you could watch RoboCop twice on a separate TV and still have more documentary left. Every single element is covered, from development, pre-production, principal photography, editing, and release. Yes, one of the great works of American genre cinema has been laid bare, with talking heads from everyone you would want to see, even Paul Verhoeven, who doesn't come off quite great through the testimonials of others, and Peter Weller, who comes off as kind of a poon hound. But you can stream RoboDoc on Amazon Prime, but Dylan's gonna love where I watched it instead.
Yes.
Where did I watch it, Dylan?
Had to be Tubi.
It is Tubi!
Yes! I thought you were going to say the Criterion channel. I'd have to fight you. Illegal crane kicks all the way.
Of course. The only way to
Criterion did put out RoboCop, so it's fitting. It would have been appropriate.
Dude, I love RoboCop. I'm like obsessed with that movie. I really want to watch that documentary, so that's a good one. I'm going to write that down.
Find 4.5 hours.
I'll figure something out.
Big Ben, send us on home.
In the style of great martial artists on film, my recommendation takes us to China and the art of Wing Chun. It's 2008's Ip Man, starring Donnie Yen. Master Ip is an actual historical figure, perhaps most well known for the training of the actual cinematic legend Bruce Lee and the unactual films based around his life, my recommendation being one of them. But it's fitting, since Bruce-sploitation became a thing, that 2008's Ip Man kind of created a fad of Ip-sploitation. My recommendation is historically inaccurate, but we can start with what they do get right. Master Ip was a wealthy grandmaster of Wing Chun. He did live in China around the time of the Japanese occupation. He did have a family, and as the closing text reminds us, he did train Bruce Lee, but that's where the truth ends. The film focuses on the Japanese invading his town and Master Ip squaring off against a martial arts match with a Japanese general who happens to be a karate master. Never happened in reality. Master Ip had long since left town before the invading army showed up. But I don't think that should stop you from enjoying this movie, because the martial artists are quick, the choreography is exciting. Donnie Yen paints Master Ip as a true gentleman who respects the martial arts, his peers, and his opponents. It's a tad over the top in its execution, but it sets that tone early on, and I think it's well worthy of consideration for the entry of great martial art films of all time. I also think the sequel is worth checking out, but I'll warn you, do not listen to that siren song of Mike Tyson calling you in the third film, because the quality steadily drops from entry to entry throughout all four. And
wait, you recommend 2 where he fights the boxer? Really?
The Mike Tyson one.
No, that's 3. When he fights the British boxer in 2.
British guy in 2, yeah.
Yeah. That one. I do
Yeah,
recommend
that one's good,
yes.
though.
Okay.
Man, solid recommendations all around. I love It Men. I Will Fight 10 Men. That's
Exactly.
such a good movie.
All right.
Ip Man, not a Poonhound, I think. But with that,
Donnie Yen, though.
I don't know. With that, we are all out of show, but we want to thank our guest, Justin Andrews, for joining us. Thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah, no, pleasure. Thanks for having me on again. It was awesome.
Yep, we'll have you back to wax poetic on something else.
You got it, brother.
We can't wait. And we hope everyone else will join us, except for you Poonhounds, as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Put him in a body bag!
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.